Hi, LinkedIners. Today we'll talk about the concept of procrastination. Is procrastination laziness? As a definition, procrastination is actually the habit to delay a task that is important in favor to a task that is less important and more enjoyable. On the other hand, the laziness is actually the unwillingness to act on a task, whatever that might be. To this effect, I actually invited Mike Cameron because he wrote the book The Emergent Leader, and he has actually a chapter dedicated to this subject. As a result, I asked him a few questions around what is procrastination, how you identify procrastination, any tricks of trades, to have any procrastination busters, what is procrastination on individual level and what impact it has on the team level. Also, we talked about this subject because it's very relevant right now due to the pandemic state of affair, where a lot of people are working from home and they don't have social proximity to other people around them. We talked also about an alternative approach, which is actually something called active procrastination. Whether that's good tactics to follow or not, please watch the interview to have a grasp on it. And also between the difference between a teller and an asker when somebody asks about the task, if it's getting done in time or not. The interview was an interesting one because speaking volume about the level of coaching that Mike offers. I was actually interviewed on a few issues. That was my world of view at the moment. And I actually encourage you to use the comment section to actually comment around what we talked. And also, if you have any procrastination busters and stories that you might tell around the impact of procrastination, whether it's within your team or within the proximity of the loved ones. As usual, a link of this book, The Emergent Leader, it's in the comment section, and please take advantage of it because it's a really great book, and it has a little bit for everybody who is in the leadership game and not just in the leadership game. So without further ado, let's go and ask Mike those questions.
Two totally different concepts there, by the way. But let's start on the individuals.
Yeah.
Often, people who are working around people who are known to be procrastinators think of them as being lazy. They don't complete a task. They don't get started because they're not organized. So a lot of people start becoming critical without actually analyzing themselves. What could they do to support that person, to help that person? And particularly if you are a team leader and you have somebody in your team that doesn't complete tasks. And it's so frequent that you start doubting whether or not you can trust them to do a particular thing. So what help can you give? Is it laziness? Now, the short answer is no, it isn't. Well, it can be, but it's very infrequently laziness. Often it's to do with a fear of failure. It can be a self-doubt, a concern about whether I can do the job. It can be that quite frequently you don't know how to tell somebody that you're overloaded with work and prioritize what needs to be done. So it's a real time management issue. So procrastination isn't simple, but some of the ways of helping people over procrastination is to accept that there are lots of things in the background that you as the leader have no control over. What you can do is perhaps put in place a process that helps that person really take control of what they are doing. So the very first thing is to look at when they're given a task, what do they actually do with the process of managing what they need to do? In other words, do they have a simple to-do list? Do they actually put it into their to-do list and prioritize its importance? Do they even question the leader as to the importance to the leader of that task's completion? Can I ask you, do you actually use yourself, Edward, do you use a to-do list or a priorities list?
Yes, in general, I use a to-do list, and actually, I changed even my format for my notebook as well. I have actually a notebook that is actually a task list. So it's not the usual one with dates. I don't have it with me to show it to you, but it has the tasks, it has the deadline for the task, and the tick mark action once you finalize the task, and it has another page in which you write some other notes, whatever notes you want to write. But I like to review that task list at the end of each week or the beginning of each week to identify what are the most high value tasks that I have to do, or low value that I can delegate or
right.
Even delay if need be. Yeah, so
fine. Now, the thing that you would have remembered from the time together with the LMA courses that they used to refer to as two things to pick up on any task that comes in or any activity. Is it a high payoff activity?
Yes.
Or is it a low payoff activity?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing is it something that's critical to your success, the team's success, the business success, whatever it might be? And if it is, how important is it? How critical is it? And once you've evaluated that, you can then call it a high payoff activity. If it isn't in that category, then firstly, delegate it if you have the authority to delegate tasks, or have that discussion with the person that's overloading you to get them to realize that they're giving you something which has low value in the scheme of things to all the other tasks that you're working on. Now that's your discussion. It's in your hands to have that. Now, as I used to say to you when we were doing the LMA training, if you actually have a to-do list that you're writing up each day, it's simple to be able to put that in front of the manager in a non-confrontationist way and say, I'm happy to take that task on, but will you help me to reprioritize where you wanted to sit in what I'm working on now, so that I don't let you down on things that you have an expectation that I complete today or this week or whenever. Okay, so that's the ball's in your court to do that. Does that make sense?
It does. And touching that, now you made me realize something, because you were talking about the perception of laziness, but I think it is, laziness is a big word. It is a little bit of being slow on planning.
Mm-hmm.
So what I realized doing the to-do list every end of the week or beginning of the week or even midweek, depending whenever I have to review myself, whenever you do that realignment, you realize, why am I doing this task? Is a low pay activity, as you said. I should actually focus on this high value activity, high payoff activity, which is getting us closer to finish a big project or an important project. And I feel, and I've seen actually around, that sometimes people, they're actually very slow in taking on that particular task of planning around their tasks or whatever duties they have.
Okay, so as a team leader, how do you react to somebody? How do you work with somebody who appears to be slow at problem solving or decision making or planning or whatever? What's your,
I
how
think
do you actually deal with that?
So it's around the questions that you put. The questions are important. The questions have to come from a curious perspective. It can be, okay, we have this task. What's the plan with that task? And just by mentioning what's the plan with that task, maybe the person is realized, hey, I don't have actually a plan to deliver the task, or I don't have a plan, period. And that comes back. Well, the plan is, let me do a plan and I'll come back to you. Or do you need any help in assessing what's important here? Do you have any other tasks that are stopping you? Let me think. I have this and this. Are they the same importance as this one in your opinion? So it's about the questions that you put to a person, to put the person in that space.
Okay, so if it's important to ask the appropriate questions, and the person being questioned needs to feel that you are genuinely trying to find out how you can be supportive, what judgment do you have to stay out of?
I don't have to fix the problem for the person. So I don't have to judge. The thing that I should focus on is if that person has every tools that the person needs, from my perspective, to be successful. And also I have to look at what success look like for both of us. Yeah, for me personally as a leader, yeah, I might deliver a project based on the particular task that the person is delivering, and that task, if it's late, it might jeopardize the whole project. But the person has to understand that as well, and that's the important thing. I don't have to tell the person how to do the tasks unless he's using me, let's say, as a echo for his or her opinions on how to do the task. But I don't have to come to say, hey, you take this, you put it in here, you write this, and so on. I would just ask, how would you do it?
Okay, so in the book, I make quite a point of asking questions for which you don't have answers. Yeah. And if you go back to the LMA days, I would quite often throw something out and say, tell me about it. Because I have no idea how you're going to respond. You might tell me a story about how something went wrong, and I will say, tell me about it. What might you have done differently? Okay, so all of those are questions I've no idea how you're going to answer. But what I'm trying to do is give you the option to think about the fact that I'm actually coming from a point of support. So the thing I really want to go back to my book, one of the things I use it as the art of delegation, but it's exactly the same question. If somebody's procrastinating, assume that perhaps you haven't delegated the task properly. You haven't made it clear, but the person hasn't had the confidence or the self-awareness to actually ask you for some help or support. By going through the reverse SMART, S-M-A-R-T, when you're delegating, have I delegated a task that is specific? Have I made it absolutely clear and measurable when I want it to be achieved? Have I checked that it's actually achievable? That the person has the time, the ability, the knowledge to be able to do it. Now that's where that person has the ability to put their to-do list in front of you and say, well, look, I've got 10 things that you're asking me to do this week. Where do you want to help me prioritize? That's giving them the chance. When you say, is it achievable? The next is it realistic? And realistic comes back to, do they know how to use the software? Do they know how to use the tools? Is it realistic that this person at that level does the task that you're asking of them? And the very final one, the T, is what's in it for them.
Yeah.
In a team environment, the person you're asking or delegating a task to, or who maybe is procrastinating, could be doing it because they've got very low self-awareness, low self-esteem. I get dumped on. I don't know where I fit in this team, but I always seem to get the tasks that other people don't want to do. All of those things are clear examples, actually, of low self-awareness, low self-esteem. So what I'm really saying is, from a leader's viewpoint, the simple thing is check by asking questions. And the smart way of asking those questions is a little, if you like, a little planner that you can go through in your mind.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does. And also, I think with the tell me about it, the problem, it's a more reactionary question. In general, when a person is coming to you with a problem, okay, so Ed or Mike, I have this problem, or that thing, it's a problem, and then it's, oh, tell me about it, because that's the curiosity bit, that tell me about it, let me see. But from delegation aspect, I think the tell me about it probably goes to tell me how would you do it, and how much time would you need? Is it feasible to do it this week? Do you have any other tasks that are impeding you? So try to remove all the obstacles for the person, but through questions, not through solving their problems.
Or you second guessing what you think the reason is. Yeah.
Exactly.
The other thing, Edward, if you come from a viewpoint of when I'm asking those questions, you're out of judgment. What you're listening for is gaps in where you felt your understanding of that person's knowledge or experience or ability to do the job. So if you're getting answers back that aren't what you expected, see them as opportunities to mentor that person, coach that person, train that person. And during that process of at least understanding that there is a problem, understanding the problem is now something that's you've uncovered, or potentially you've uncovered, is to address whether or not there are issues that are, well, the person's been trained. Why isn't the person doing it? Well, the person might have been trained several years ago or several months ago. On their CV. Yeah. And it could say on their CV they're totally capable of doing it. Now you imagine if suddenly somebody comes up and says, I want that task done because I assume that you can do it. I don't check, I dump on you, and you haven't got the courage or whatever it might be to stand up and say, whoa, hang on, I really don't know how to do that currently. Yes, I got trained, but suddenly you're getting paid as if you actually could do the job, depending on what your pay scale is or how you're being assessed for the job you've got. There are things that people particularly in corporate environments, are loath to open to somebody who is a teller.
Yeah, correct.
Somebody who's an asker, you'll open up and you'll say, yes, I did know, but I need a refresher.
Yeah, sometimes when I had the problem, haven't used the system in months or years, and then I even forgot the password to enter.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's a good example, that system, I haven't used it in a while, so that might stop you from delivering that work. Not that you can't get the password, but I'm just saying probably it's a small example. Yeah.
But it's a good example because mostly people think about people who are procrastinating, that they're either poor time managers or they've got a problem, or they're lazy. Do I put my hand up and admit that I am a procrastinator? And the short answer is yes at times, but I justify my procrastination on the basis that I like to work under pressure. And by delaying doing the action in terms of starting it, the pressure builds up because I know I have a deadline. So I judge myself always, do I meet every deadline? And the short answer is I've never been criticized for missing a board report or whatever it might be, or an important piece of stuff I've promised. Am I an absolute pain in the ass to people around me? Because the pressure builds up until ultimately I will work, 15, 18-hour days towards the end to where I'm physically and mentally tired. Is that a good strategy in the long term? No, it's a silly strategy.
No, it's not.
But it's worked for me over the years and I've done it.
Yeah.
And if you read my book, there's a psychologist in there that says it's one of the strategies to overcome procrastination. But having done it, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but particularly if you like the people around you, because whilst you're focused on delivering your outcome, nothing else matters. And that's not necessarily a good way out of procrastination. One final thing with procrastination that I've mentioned in my book, some people who have, say, ADHD or a depression or anxiety or a mental health issue of some sort may have difficulty in being able to deal with a standard process. It may be that the medicine they're taking creates a problem for them. So if you see people who normally have been good at problem solving and process organizing, struggling, ask questions, find out if there are other issues that are creating your perception of procrastination. It might be that the person has another issue that they haven't shared with you or anyone else.